Before we start with the program, a special mention and thanks to our sponsors for the event: CESC Limited as principal sponsor, Tanishq as co-sponsor, The Telegraph as associate sponsor, EIILM as academic partner, 91.9 Friends FM as radio partner. Ladies and gentlemen, we will start the program shortly. We'll request you to kindly stay tuned. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. We will shortly start the inaugural session. Thank you. With the permission of the speakers, we will begin. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. Please welcome our dignitaries for the inaugural session, Ms. Rekha Sethi, Director General, All India Management Association, and Mr. Amitabha Datta, President, Calcutta Management Association. May I now request Mr. Amitabha Datta to deliver the welcome address, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and my young friends who are participating in today's program. On behalf of the All India Management Association and the Calcutta Management Association, it is my privilege and pleasure to welcome you to this program, which has been most appropriately named as the Shaping Young Minds program. I also take this opportunity to welcome to this program the two eminent and distinguished speakers, Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani and Mr. Deep Kalra. The Shaping Young Minds program has been created with the realization that our students and young professionals can and will play a very important role in steering the nation forward. Interacting and listening to icons straddling different walks of life provides an opportunity to the students and the young professionals to learn from them and also to get motivated by them. Today, dear students, you will have the privilege of hearing firsthand from two iconic personalities who will share with you their experiences about events and people who have shaped their lives. And speaking to them would be two individuals who themselves are very successful professionals in their own respective fields of work. Mrs. Rekha Sethi, Director General, AIMA, and Mr. Jimmy Tangree, the head of 91.9, one of the leading radio channels in Calcutta. I'm personally convinced that this will be a very rewarding experience for all of us. I would also like this opportunity to say a few words about the Calcutta Management Association, which started the trend of management associations in this country and was one of the founding members of the apex management association in the country, the All India Management Association. The Calcutta Management Association, CMA as it is called, was founded by Sir Jahangir Gandhi, the then Director General of the Tata Iron and Steel Company, way back in 1957. The vision of the Calcutta Management Association was to create a platform for the management community where relevant and contemporary management ideas can be conceptualized, formulated, developed, and practiced. Over the years, the CM has organized various programs on its own and also in association with our parent body, AIMA. The Shaping Young Minds is one such, and the CMA is grateful to the All India Management Association and particularly Ms. Rekha Sethi, the Director General and her team, for giving us an opportunity to host and organize this unique program in Kolkata and the East. We are also grateful to them for organizing such a distinguished panel of speakers. Before I conclude, I would once again like to thank the speakers, the moderators, Mr. Tangree and Ms. Rekha Sethi, the team at AIMA, the sponsors, and all the participants for helping us organize this program. Thank you very much and welcome once again.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Ms. Rekha Sethi, Director General, All India Management Association, to kindly address the participants.
Good morning and hi everybody, all you young students, my colleagues from AIMA, Mr. Amitabha Datta, Mr. Jimmy Tangree, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the All India Management Association and the Calcutta Management Association, it really gives me a lot of pleasure to welcome you all this morning. This is the first time that we are organizing an online version of the very popular Shaping Young Minds program. So I hope you guys are here to have fun, enjoy yourself, ask questions, and interact with icons who normally one would have only heard about. But you will have a chance to interact with them, and I hope you guys will be up to the occasion and ask them tough questions, which would probably help you in your career going forward. AIMA started this unique and innovative program about 17 years back. During this period, I think we have conducted this program in 30 cities, touching over 75,000 young students and professionals in 76 editions. And each time we've received an overwhelming response from our delegates, which has led us to do many more of these programs. Today, the Shaping Young Minds program has become a brand product of AIMA, and we are actually very, very proud of it. Like other events, we have been forced by the pandemic to do this event virtually, although we do realize the value of a live interaction with an iconic personality. But hopefully we should be able to go back to bringing you people and personalities who have been there and done it all. Delighted to partner with Calcutta Management Association for the first online SYMP. And I want to thank them for taking this initiative, because I don't think the other LMAs had come forward, and we were very keen to not stop this program because of the pandemic and bring it to you. So a big thank you to Mr. Datta and to his colleagues at CMA for bringing the first online version of SYMP to all you guys. This is not the first time we have done the SYMP in Calcutta. We have done it 6 times, I think 6 times before, and we will definitely do it again in the coming future, and hopefully that will be live. You know, it's a great time to be young in India. I always say that when people question me about what's happening in the country. The world is increasingly looking towards India to find the next generation of business leaders. There's so much choice today. When we were growing up, our options were limited to being a doctor or an engineer or a chartered accountant. But now the world is your oyster. You can become a DJ or a VJ. You can be a chef or a musician or a sports person. You can design digital games, and you can build companies from scratch. This is a great time to be young. This is also the time when you're spoiled for choice and options and confused as to where to head next. This is a time when you need direction and guidance, and more than that, inspiration. This is what the Shaping Young Minds program does. It inspires through chats with leaders from different walks of life. And I would want you to take full advantage of our speakers today, 2 extremely, extremely iconic personalities, Sanjeev Bikhchandani and Deep Kalra. And this is really the context in which AIMA is also doing its bit to shape young minds, so that they are prepared for the opportunities before them and also the challenges that they will deal with in their career. You know, the beauty of this program is, and I always say that there are no lectures. Nobody is going to give you gyan. You will have these iconic leaders simply talk to you through a fireside chat to share their lives, their success, and more importantly, their failures, how they have reached where they are today. There was a time that failure was absolutely unacceptable in India, but that time is way, way past. And I'm so happy that the society and industry at large accepts failure as long as you learn from it, dust yourself off and move on. I do hope that this way, we at AIMA will be able to help you light that spark which will take you forward in life to manage your career and life with confidence, experience, and zest. Life has many challenges. You win some and you lose some. You must enjoy winning, but do not let it go to your head. The moment it does, you're already on your way to failure. And if you do encounter failure along the way, treat it as an equally natural phenomenon. Accept it, look at your own share in the problem, learn from it, and just move on. The important thing is, when you lose, do not lose the lesson. And yes, this is coming from somebody who has succeeded and failed in equal measures. Don't let it bother you. That's the best way forward. While it is important for us to know that what we are not good at, we must also cherish what is good in us. From the earliest years of our schooling, everyone focuses on what is wrong with us. I would strongly recommend that one must definitely identify and focus on their strengths, because it is only our strengths that can give us the energy to correct our weaknesses. One should never give up in the face of adversity. It comes on you suddenly without warning. One can either succumb to self-pity or decide to deal with the situation with courage and dignity. Always keep in mind that it is only the test of fire that makes fine steel. Another important aspect young people should keep in mind is that one must be faithful and loyal and must define what your core values are and what you stand for. While you must be open to suggestions and changes, do not compromise on your values. Values like honesty, integrity, consideration, and humility have survived generations. At the end of the day, it is values that define a person more than achievements. As young people, you must always strive for excellence. One way of achieving excellence is by looking at those better than ourselves. Keep learning from what they do differently, emulate it, but excellence cannot be imposed from the outside. One must also feel the need from within. It must become an obsession. It must involve not only our mind, but also our heart and soul. Excellence is not an act, but an habit. AIMA is delighted and proud to provide a platform where budding managers and leaders of tomorrow can interact with iconic leaders from different fields and learn from the experiences of those who have been there and done that. Our icons today are two of my favorite people. We were all in college, not at the same time, but same college, and they are actually the original pioneers of entrepreneurship. Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, founder and vice chairman, Info Edge India Limited, or as most of you would probably know the company by its iconic flagship, Naukri.com, and Mr. Deep Kalra, founder and group executive chairman, MakeMyTrip Limited. To quote Star Trek, to go boldly where no man has gone before, they were the original explorers. We couldn't have asked for a better set of speakers today. With these words, I hope you will have a great time with us today. I would now request the compere to take the program forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. After the inaugural session, we are just about to begin the first session for the day. We are awaiting our speakers, and we will hopefully begin at 10:45. Kindly do stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, the session is also being streamed live on AIMA, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also view the session there in case you are unable to join on Zoom. Ladies and gentlemen, apologies for the slight delay. Our speaker will join us very shortly. We hope to begin in a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience and apologies once again for the slight delay. We are now ready to begin the first session of the day. With the speaker's permission for the first session. Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani has also joined us. Sir, if I may request you to kindly turn your video on. Thank you. We welcome you all to the first session of the Shaping Young Minds program with Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani as the speaker and Mr. Jimmy Tangree as the session chair. Before I hand over the session to Mr. Tangree, a few words about him. Mr. Jimmy Tangree is head of 91.9 Friends FM Kolkata. Born and brought up in Kolkata in a business family, he completed his education from St. Xavier's, and his love for music got him into DJing in 1983. And since 1994, he has also been with radio from RJ to setting up radio stations in India and abroad, from operations to strategy. With over 27 years with radio, he has been continuously setting trends and innovation in this field. With these few words, I hand over to Mr. Tangree with a request to introduce the speaker, Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, and also take the program forward.
Well, thank you and good morning to everyone. I hope you all can hear me clearly. If you can, Sanjeev, can you hear me clearly? You can just put a thumbs up. Okay, great. Uh, it's always a pleasure being at this amazing program, which is known as, of course, Shaping Young Minds program, brought to you by AIMA in association with the CMA. And it's always been a pleasure interacting with stalwarts and amazing personalities who not only have shaped their lives, but shaping lives of tons and tons of young students across. Uh, and I would just like to say, in our times, either you became an MBA, engineer, doctor, you had very little choice. But today, in today's world, there are 128 alternative careers. Your mind itself will get you started with a lot of innovation and lead you to entrepreneurship. And today with us, we have an amazing personality. He's kind of rocketed the world of Naukri, I would say, and given hope to a lot of youngsters, not just youngsters, a lot of professionals also who look at getting into different kinds of work areas. Yes, a warm welcome to Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, who is the founder and vice chairman of Info Edge India Limited, the company that owns Naukri.com. Trust me, Naukri.com needs no introduction, which is India's leading job site. It also owns 99 acres, Jeevansati.com and Shiksha.com. And it's so amazing, providing jobs, providing property, providing your life partner, and also taking you through education. I think Mr. Bikhchandani has just got it absolutely right. In our language, we say roti, kapda, or makan. He's providing Naukri, he's providing Makan, he's providing you a life partner, and also in the lines of Shiksha.com, giving you guidance for education. In addition, InfoEdge has also invested in promising internet startups such as Zomato, Policy Bazaar, Shop Kirana, Ustra, Gramophone, Shipsy, and Printo, among others. Sanjeev schooled at the St. Columbia School in New Delhi. He graduated in economics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and began his career working in advertising with Lintas. After working for 3 years, he did his post-graduation from IIM Ahmedabad in 1989 and joined the consumer marketing firm HMM Limited, now GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare Limited. He quit his job for entrepreneurship 18 months later and co-founded Info Edge. That's when the magic started. For the first 7 years as an entrepreneur, Sanjeev drifted and did a number of small businesses, from salary surveys to databases to feasibility studies to training. For a brief period, he was the consulting editor of Avenues, the career supplement of the Pioneer newspaper. In 1997, Info Edge launched Naukri.com and transformed itself into an internet company. Trust me, those days, internet companies were non-existent or just a very few. So it takes a lot of guts, it takes a lot of foresight to get into something like that. Starting off from a servant quarter above a garage with a seat capital of 2,000 rupees. Sanjeev, I really wish I met you that time. I think I could have afforded about 2,000 rupees and we could have partnered ourselves. And who knows where I would have been today. But anyhow, the company grew an attractive investment from leading venture capitalists. It was the first internet company to list on the Indian Stock Exchange. Today, Info Edge employs over 4,000 people, ladies and gentlemen, and has a market capitalization of over USD 4 billion. Amazing, from 2000 right to 4 billion. Sanjeev, you've got some magic out there, and I'm sure it works wonders all over. Well, Sanjeev is active in various industry forums and is a contributor to the entrepreneurship ecosystem. He has served as the president of the Delhi chapter of TIE. He has also served as a member of the Global Board of Trustees of TIE. He serves as a member of the Council of Management of the All India Management Association. He has been chair of the Internet Council of NASCOM. He has also served on the Venture Capital Investment Committee of SIDBI Fund of Funds for Startup. Sanjeev is a member of the board of CIIE initiatives at IIM Ahmedabad. Of course, he's also engaged in philanthropy, He is a founding trustee of Ashoka University, and he's been doing so much. Sanjeev has received several awards and honors. He's received the Ernest Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2008 for business transformation, and a lot more. Trust me, if I carry on reading the awards, it's going to maybe take the entire time of our talk heart to heart, I would say. But yes, recently in 2019, he was honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award in IT given by the Financial Express. And in February 2020, the Ministry of Home Affairs approved Sanjeev's name for the conferment of Padma Shri Award. Mr. Bikhchandani, a warm welcome to you today.
Thanks, Jimmy. And you can call me Sanjeev. I think we can be at first name terms.
Absolutely. Well, you're a rock star in your own right, trust me, and a huge inspiration to a lot of young and youth out there who are studying, and of course, even professionals. And I'm just curious, last 1 year, things went topsy-turvy, North Pole became South Pole, South Pole became North Pole. We didn't know what hit us, when, and from March onwards, many of us were locked indoors. Well, some of us were working. We in radio were still broadcasting 24/7 live from the studios. How did it affect you? Were you locked indoors, or were you actually still, shooting your guns and going forward?
Well, actually, we in our company were a little paranoid. So when the first videos came out on social media about, what's going on in Wuhan, this is around January or maybe December. And then, the news filtered through that this could be a global thing, right? Could become.
Yeah.
Okay, we took one resource from our CSR team and said, look, you do CSR half day, but half day you track this thing, right?
Absolutely.
Then around, I think it was January or February, I forget, when the first publicized case in India of this person who came on this flight from Milan to Delhi, and then went to the Hyatt Hotel in Delhi, went to Noida, went to Mayur Vihar, and went to Agra, creating a trail of infections. When that case was publicized, one of our senior colleagues reached out and said, look, my wife was a cabin crew on that flight, and she's received communication from the airline to quarantine at home. At that time, there were no tests available, right? And so therefore, I think it's safer for everyone in office if I also quarantine at home. And that's when sort of our antennae went up and said, okay, it's coming close, right? And so we prepared a plan, and I must commend our IT department and all the people involved in the businesses. We prepared a plan to work from home. And 15 days before the government announced lockdown, we moved to work from home. We were probably one of the first organizations in India to work from home. Okay. And we discovered early on that we could work from home. And all the teething problems we did in the next 15 days, we overcame them before the government announced lockdown. So actually, we were quite well prepared for working from home. And we discovered a few things, right? So look, it was really difficult in the first 3 months because the economy was locked down. So Naukri is our biggest business, and companies were not going to hire in times of lockdown when the future is uncertain. So Naukri saw a 44% year-on-year decline in billings in Q1, which was a crisis for us. But fortunately, we had enough cash reserves and enough margins in the business that we were still profitable. And so we did not have to either ask anyone to go, and we did not also have to cut any salaries. We deferred increments, we deferred bonuses, but everybody stayed in the company because we were clear that, listen, this is the people's business and this company is built by people. And the worst time to ask anybody to go is when he can't get a job.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think it's really important to be good to your people, and we did not ask anybody to go. And that sits very well with our conscience right now, 12 months later.
Amazing. The first point, getting across, be good with the people you're working with or employing, because if you take care of your team, trust me, they take care of the entire institution in their own way. And I'm just curious, Sanjeev, during these, lockdown period, Did you rediscover yourself? Did you reinvent yourself? Did you create something different from the usual Sanjeev Bikhchandani?
Well, look, obviously it's given me enough time to reflect, but I'm working from home. We are still working from home. We haven't opened our offices yet because, this thing is coming and going in waves, and we have offices in 41 cities around the country, right? And we have discovered actually productivity has gone up in many cases working from home. So for example, our sales team in Naukri could get about 2, maybe 3 sales meetings in a day with clients and prospective clients. You've got to fix the appointment, there's a commuting time, there's a waiting time, there's each meeting must last 1 hour because you've got to have tea, coffee, chit chat, right? To make an impactful sort of sales call. Then you come back and so on. And therefore you get 2, maybe 3 meetings a day. They are now doing 10 to 12 meetings a day because over video. Each meeting is, reasonably quick. You don't talk unnecessary stuff, right? You get to the point. And more importantly, anybody senior in the company can join any sales meeting from around the country, sitting in wherever they are. So now, instead of a frontline sales exec going alone, you can carry any senior manager with him on video.
And plus, the company saves a lot of cost of traveling and engaging in a big way if you have to travel.
Well, yeah, some amount of travel cost, but the real thing is productivity. I mean, you're doing 3 calls a day, now you're doing 10 calls a day, 3x.
Absolutely. And of course, being the founder and vice chairman of InfoEdge India Limited, Naukri.com has been the flagship company. Now, what difference do you see in job applicants of the youth of today from the earlier years? Because earlier years, it was a very straightforward thing. Today, they are more go-getting. The way they come across, the way they apply is actually very, very innovative, and it's got a josh, I would say. So what do you feel?
Look, I think that, I began my career in 1984. That's 37 years ago, straight out of college. And then 2 years I took off study in the middle. But I've had roughly about 35 years of working in industry, private sector, corporate sector, plus entrepreneurship. I think when I look at my CV or the CVs of my contemporaries and their career records, and I look at young people today, I think for the young people don't crave the kind of security and stability that an earlier generation did. They're quite happy to switch 3 or 4 or 5 jobs in the first 2, 3 years of their career while they're finding themselves. I call this phenomenon snacking on jobs. People snack on jobs in the first 2, 3, 4 years of their career till they figure things out. It's learning by doing. In 1984, I was really happy to get one job, any job, and I stuck there. Right? Because there weren't so many jobs and there weren't so many options. Right? Absolutely. I also think that people are more confident, they are more secure, they are more outspoken, they are more ambitious, they are more gutsy. And in many, many ways, perhaps they are smarter than people of an earlier generation. And that's great, because that's how society progresses. The next generation has to be smarter than the earlier generation and better than the earlier generation.
But Sanjeev, the next generation is definitely smart, go-getting. They do a hell of a good job. But don't you think so? They are very eager to rush up the ladder at a very high speed. Like, when you talk to someone and where do you see the person when you ask the person? They say within 1 year's time, I want to become the president of the company, or I want to reach a vice president post. Don't you think there's a big rush to it in today's world, because the world is, going at very high speed?
So, Jimmy, you run a FM radio station.
Right.
I have not heard your station in Calcutta, but I presume you play music, right?
Absolutely. Music. And in fact, let me tell you one thing is, we are the only 24/7 live station in the country. And from the 8th of June, because of the pandemic, we are also streaming 24 live on Facebook Live.
Excellent. Excellent. So you play English music?
We play English music towards weekend.
Okay. So, there's a song by Billy Joel.
Absolutely.
Called Vienna.
Absolutely. Yes, it's a beautiful song.
Okay. So I've listened to that maybe 10,000 times in my life. And I tell every young person to listen to the song and understand the words. Right? And if you remember the lyrics, slow down, you crazy child.
Absolutely.
You're so ambitious or a juvenile.
You know the words by heart, Sanjeev.
Yes,
you know the words
yes.
by heart.
So look, it's something they'll figure out on their own. It's like my parents would tell me that, listen, why are you in so much of a hurry, right? And I would say, I would sort of ignore it. I would be polite and say yes, but I would, eventually do my own thing, right? And I found my way. I think, yes, youngsters are in a hurry, but hopefully they will find their way.
You know what, Sanjeev? You know what? I'm going to play this song for you one day on radio, and I'm going to send you a message. You must hook on to Facebook Live and hear it.
I will do that.
Because it's going to be a dedication for you. And, talking about the rush and talking about careers, what are the three most crucial values that you feel students should imbibe to become leaders of tomorrow? Those qualities which make them go up the ladder, not only up the ladder in terms of positioning and monies, but also leaders of tomorrow.
Look, I think the fundamental traits required, the fundamental values required have not changed. Okay. First of all, you've got to be great with working with people. And great with working with people does not mean you're a leader. In the beginning, you'll be a follower. In the beginning,
you need to be a people's person, as we say.
People's person. Now, to be a people's person, you have to have a lot of humility. You have to respect the other person. So, I can see a lot of MBA students there in the audience. In my MBA program, when I was there in my MBA program from 87 to 89, I completed my MBA. We had, I know a few things, a few memories stand out. One memory I have is of an eminent professor in class say one line in the middle of a class, right, when he was giving us a lecture. First, seek to understand. Only then try to be understood.
Brilliant.
Now, when you think about this, it's got a very deep, profound meaning and huge implications for the way you conduct yourself. Do you have an inquiring mind? Do you respect the other person? Will you listen to him before you speak? Will you try and understand his point of view? Right? If you do all these things, you'll hopefully become a better people's person.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So first trait is become a good people's person. The second trait is very old-fashioned, but there's no getting away from it. You've got to work really hard. Nothing comes without hard work. No big achievement comes without hard work. Right? You don't get stuff given to you on a platter in life. Mehnat karni padti hai. You will have to work hard.
Absolutely. And in the current scenario, it's much, 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 much more.
And the third thing relates to the point, again, it's old-fashioned. It relates to the point you raised about people being in too much of a hurry. I said the greatest quality of any successful person or most successful person is persistence and practice. Right? You look at any great company, it was the result of a lifetime's effort of a few people. They spend their lives doing it. Look at Microsoft. Bill Gates and his colleagues spend their lives doing it. Look at Google, 1998 founding, 23 years later, 24 years later, the founders are still there, still doing it. Facebook, 16 years later, still doing it. Right? You look at any great achievement by anybody in any other sphere of life. Right? Mahatma Gandhi came back to India in 1915. It took him 32 years to lead the independence movement. And only then independence achieved. Or you look at in religion. Take a look at the life of Jesus. It was the years he spent in the Sea of Galilee that shaped him, which enabled him to make the kind of impact that he did later on in life. Look at Lord Ram. 14 years vanvas in the forest. Only then was he triumphant.
But Sanjeev, here I'd like to put one point forward, which we had just spoken, before. You said right in the initial stage, most of the youth like to snack on, jump from one job to the other. Some way or another, the consistency, in the first couple of years of career goes a little haywire. What do you have to say to that?
Well, look, I'm saying it's okay to drift and snack for a while. but you can't do that for all your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So at some point of time, after you discover yourself, discover the world, discover various options, you've got to settle down and sit and focus. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Absolutely. You should know where you're heading, you know, ultimate the destination.
Ultimately.
Nahi to the train to patri se nikal jayenge, and then you won't know what hit you where. Sanjeev, if I look back at February 2020, the Ministry of Home Affairs approved your name for the conferment of the Padma Shri Award. Request you to kindly share that proud moment, you know. What did you think? What did you feel? Because you worked towards it over the years. And
well, actually, I was not expecting it. I had not applied for it. I had not spoken to anybody for it. It came as a surprise. I suddenly began to get these congratulatory WhatsApps and a few calls. And that's when I learned that, okay, I'm on the list. Right? So I was obviously very, very pleasantly surprised. It was humbling in a way. It was a lesson that, listen, in this country, you can still get something without lobbying for it.
Absolutely. And I think
that was very heartening.
The consistency, you know, the way you move things forward, as you rightly said, you were there and you were always there, building up consistently and positively, you know. Because in today's world, I think it's more of an attitude area. You know, you try to blow the trumpet when you get something, but the humbleness of yours, I think humility, I think that's one of the biggest traits as one moves up the ladder and one moves about, you know, to the final stage of achieving a huge success.
So, you know, this is something I would tell young people to be very, very conscious of, especially as you get more and more successful. Right? How you treat people, others, is really important. It's important to be humble. It's important to be polite and respectful with others. I mean, that's how people will want to work with you. And that's how you build a good team, when you are in a position where you need to build a good team. Absolutely. You are in a leadership position.
And they say one critical angle is the person's attitude. You know,
absolutely.
Down to earth, humble, easily accessible, having a patient here to listen, and of course, be the guiding light also. And I think rightly you said, the most of the humblest people have been the most of the successful people, if you actually go to see in terms of businesses or entrepreneurship. You have been closely associated with a lot of industry associations. How do you think industry associations can contribute to the society? You know, they are doing a lot, but how can we take it one step further? Because ultimately, it is the people coming together in industry who give a guiding light and a way forward.
So look, I mean, different industry associations have got different sort of mandates and goals. So let's take something like TIE, where I'm on the board. I've been on the global board, the Indus Entrepreneurs. There, the mandate is pretty clear. You've got to encourage startups and entrepreneurship. And they've been doing that since 1992, when it was first founded in Silicon Valley.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think in Delhi, where I live, in Calcutta, where you live, right? In Bombay, in Bangalore, I mean, there are various chapters of TIE.
Absolutely.
Right, which are doing that. Okay, now, one is the mission is encouraging startups. Two is startups are really important in the country. Because if you look at all the industries and sectors that have created jobs, hope, buzz, growth in the economy in the last 30 years, 35 years since I began my career in '84, many of these industries and companies did not exist 35 years ago. Take a look at the IT services industry, not more than 30, 35 years old. IT-enabled services, not more than 20, 25 years old. Internet companies, not more than 20 years old. Mobile app companies, not more than 10 years old or 15 years old. Private sector airlines, private sector banks, private sector insurance companies, right? You look at company after company, industry after industry, they were all startups once. Not too far back, HCL and Infosys were startups in 1980. Look at the impact that the IT services sector has done in India. So startups are really important for the future. And the fact that TIE focused on startups, I think, is a huge contribution to society.
Yes, and you all actually create entrepreneurship. And in fact, in the startups now these days, especially the youth, there's so much of innovative startups coming up with a very big difference one could never even think about. And one, for example, which I remember I met you at one of the outlets was Wow Momo,
Wow, Momo, yes.
which Sagar and team actually started off from nothing and have made into one of the biggest somethings, I would say.
35,000 rupees. Wow, Momo started with 35,000 rupees.
Absolutely. And it started off over a lady cooking momos, and then the thought sparkled in the head. And
Yes.
another factor I would say, they say when you invert wow, it becomes mom.
Yes.
So somewhere or another they have had a beautiful theory behind the entire aspect. And again, that shows the power and the forward thinking and the innovative attitude of a lot of the young generation.
Correct. Now, say, take a look at one moment. Let's say it's between 200 to 300 outlets right now, even post-COVID.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, if each outlet employs directly maybe 10 people, I don't know how many they do, but that's 3,000 people. And then the forward supply chain, the backward supply chain, right? Maybe one organization starting with 35,000 rupees 10 years ago is now created maybe 30,000 jobs.
Absolutely. And I would like to tell you one thing, like you said, during the pandemic, they ensured that everybody was paid and no jobs were lost. Though they were a startup, they were young and they were worried, but ultimately, somewhere or another, they were connecting. They innovated, they started home deliveries in a quick succession. They thought of alternative kind of business within Wamomos to make it stand out, and they actually achieved to a large extent.
That's correct. Totally correct.
And you've had an illustrious career. I would say you've been amazingly go-getting, hard-hitting. I'm sure somewhere or another, you have a role model. And I'm just curious, who is that role model and why?
So listen, I don't have any one role model.
Okay.
Learn different things from different people. I've always had people to learn from. Often they have been older to me, but now as I get older, often they're younger to me, right? But when I was young, I began my job, my career in 1985. I was 21, and I was in Lintas, and first in Delhi and in Bombay. I think I was very fortunate that there were so many really talented and smart people there, whom I could learn from just in conversations, just in meetings, just by observing them, just by working with them. Whether it is getting personally organized, whether it is my work ethic, whether it is thinking strategically, whether it is being good with people, whether it is being clear about goals and priorities, whether it is about the importance of really working hard. So, I believe that just as a child learns the most in the first 3 or 4 years of his or her life, a baby, right?
Absolutely.
I believe a working professional learns the most in the first 3 or 4 years of his or her working life and career.
And it's basically, I think the learning comes from looking around, understanding, observing people,
Exactly.
and imbibing the good qualities which can help them to grow.
Exactly. And therefore, to the young people out there listening, I would say your first job or your first 3, 4 years of your working life are really important. They will determine the work ethics that you will follow over the next 30 years of your working life. And your work ethic will be determining your success in life or your career, right? And therefore, in the first 3 or 4 years, it's really important to be at a place where you're learning the right things from the right people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because,
and therefore, while money is important, in the first 3 or 4 years, learning is even more important.
Absolutely. In fact, today, if we look at the concept of internships, at various areas where you would like to follow your heart and follow your career, it gives a very big guiding light to them. And, the only problem, again, I say, and I've actually faced it many a time, is they want to join in and they want to jump up. I think somewhere or another, I do understand there's a rat race, but I think somewhere or another, there also has to be a control, as rightly you said.
I totally agree with you. But you know what? 90% will not listen. They have to figure it out for themselves.
Absolutely. And I think that figuring out sometimes is a harsh lesson.
It can be. It can be.
No, and, in your illustrious career, any one moment from the past which you, if given an opportunity, would like to rectify and act differently? Any, because there have been so many moments in life as you move forward.
I think the most difficult moments are when you make people mistakes, right? Because mentally they sort of give you a lot of cause for reflection, some trauma, some pain, right? So I have been through 3 partnership breakups, right, since 1990 when I became an entrepreneur, right? And I think maybe I should have done some, maybe it was my fault also, partly, maybe I should have done something differently. So I think people mistakes are usually the biggest mistakes.
Absolutely.
I mean, of course, mistakes on ethics and integrity are even bigger mistakes, but thankfully I've not made those, right? And I would urge everyone listening that, listen, I mean, be very clear on ethics and integrity. Do the right thing, even if it means in the short run you don't do as well. Don't do the wrong thing, right? But once you sort of got that basic level of integrity and ethics and values in place, the next level is people mistakes.
Absolutely. And talking about the way they move up and the way they climb up the ladder, taking into consideration important things like, when I was much younger, I used to always love talking. I used to love interrupting. My listening capacity was a little less. So, currently, if you've noticed, a lot of the youngsters, kind of charge into things and kind of like to put their ideas forward, kind of listen, but not listen that much. How important is listening?
I have the same problem too. So I'm the last one to lecture on this, but yes, I do believe that we would all benefit, including me, by listening more.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sanjeev, because you've been there, you've been rocking, and still after a long time, even me today, if I have a point to move forward, sometimes I kind of interject because I feel I'll forget what I have to say, when the things get forward. So now talking about this world of social media, we've forgotten how to communicate face to face many a time. We've forgotten how to interact like the good old days. हम लोग फुटबॉल खेलते थे, रास्ते में ट्यूबवेल से पानी पीते थे. We used to be chilled out. There was no hassles. How social media today can play a role, looking at even all the deficiencies, empowering the youth. Of course, it's great in communication. It's great in setting up. Today we are sitting and there are 500 of us, on a Zoom platform, understanding each other. So how would you feel that social media today play a major role in empowering the youth of today?
Look, I think social media is very powerful. There's some very good things about it, but I fear it is reducing real people-to-people contact as well. So, for example, at AIMA Ahmedabad, right, where I studied, right, we used to be hanging out with each other all the time.
Absolutely.
Okay, till 3 a.m. Then came this, LAN, this wide area network where you had a 2 Gbps pipe running into every room with computers in every room. Then people began to interact on computers, right? And they would meet less often. So partying together meant that one guy would put a movie on his hard drive and 40 guys would watch it at the same time and then comment on the side. And that was socializing, right? We used to do adda. We used to have a cup of tea, an omelette, till 3 in the morning.
Absolutely.
Midnight snack, midnight feast, discuss this case study across the table, right? And now it's gone beyond that because now there's a handheld device with everybody, okay? And you've got your WhatsApp and you've got your whatever. So there is serious conversation going on at IMA that the architecture has got, the physical architecture has got obsolete because people don't need meeting spaces anymore because they don't meet. And I don't think that's so healthy.
So the plus and the minuses need to be, kind of coming together, because I've seen people sitting in the same room, sitting in the office, 10 feet away, no communication in terms of words or face to face. It's all on WhatsApp. Though
Yep,
they're sitting 10 feet away, basically.
that
So,
is correct.
yes, it's got a big role to play. But I think somewhere or another, students should realize there's something called life. There's something called meeting up.
Human beings are fundamentally social animals, and without face-to-face interaction, without touch and feel, without you know, uh, so people ask me, work from home, is it forever? And I say it cannot be, because human beings are social animals. I
Absolutely.
want to be able to walk into my colleague's cabin and sit down and have a cup of coffee with him and have and and chat about nothing.
Absolutely. They say the adda culture for some time. It's a nice feel.
Yeah,
Actually, I think it gives a more positive vibe.
yeah,
It kind
yeah.
of clears your mind
How
up,
do you
makes you
brainstorm?
happy.
How do you brainstorm over Zoom? How do you induct new employees over Zoom? Yeah, what's your company culture like? I don't know. I've not met anybody for the last 3 years. It's all on Zoom. It can't work that way.
Absolutely. And I want to say something, when, personally, I've gone through this. When I give a presentation to an organization face to face in a conference room, it has a more hard hitting effect than over a Zoom. Of course, Zoom was a necessity, but I'm sure as we move back to good old times, there will be a combination of the electronic and the physical space.
That's true. It
Abs-
will be hybrid model.
Absolutely. Sanjeev, I want to ask you one question. You seem a very chilled out person. You've actually risen, you've actually knocked, you've actually moved forward. You've created a unique identity in various forms of entrepreneurship. Are you a party animal?
Uh, Less and less so.
Because they say, work hard, party harder, and you'll rock.
I could do that when I was in my 20s, a little bit in my 30s, but increasingly now I'm 57. I'll be 58 in June. I don't do that anymore.
But Sanjeev, let me tell you, you've got the josh, you've got the energy, you've got, the go-getting attitude. I think if you play your favorite song, you're going to be swinging for some time. Uh, okay, let's move a little forward. Of course, which one quality you feel one should possess to be a successful both professionally and personally? Of course, you've spoken about a lot of amazing qualities, but which is that top quality you feel that any young person getting out into the world, should possess, and it should help the person professionally as well as personally.
So, look, I think when I started my career, what really helped me was that, listen, I'm prepared to do whatever work comes my way, no matter how lousy it may appear to be. Right? So I know a lot of work is operational and drudgery. I know a lot of work is, oh my God, this is not challenging enough. But if it's got to be done, it's got to be done. Right? And in organizations, when you start off, you are usually at the bottom. And the truth is, whether you like it or not, it is the nature of things. It is the law of life that the junior guys will often get the most operational work.
Absolutely.
Now, that's partly because you're junior and because your senior doesn't want to do it and he's gives it to you, and partly it's because the junior guys have always done it. But also there's a learning in that, because if you do the operational work, you learn operations. You learn operations, you learn the nuts and bolts of an organization. You learn the nuts and bolts of an organization, you are better equipped to succeed in that organization.
But
Actually,
if I
it's a
if I
path to success.
if I look at the youth, a lot of them, like I'm just saying, today, if someone's passed out from a management institute and joins an organization, just starting off, many of them feel, yeah, I mean, why should I do that? It's not my kind of job. I'm a management student. I should be doing something else. And about a lot of them think like that.
Yeah. So now the thing is, people ask me often, young people ask me, so what should I do in my first job if I want to be an entrepreneur? Right? And I was once on a panel with a friend called Sanjeev Agarwal, who set up Daksh and then Helion Venture Fund. I mean, pretty good guy, smart guy, right? Good friend of mine. And he gave a very, very good answer. He said, son, in your first job, you should either be making something or selling something. All this consulting, investment banking, strategy, वो सब ठीक है, but that doesn't prepare you for entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. कुछ बनाओ या कुछ बेचो.
या कुछ बनाओ कुछ बेचो. इन दो चीजें करो.
And actually that gives
entrepreneur को ये दो चीजें करनी पड़ती है.
Absolutely. I think that's what it is all about. You have created something, and whether it be a service, whether it be a physical attribute, you're selling it. And how you sell it makes you an entrepreneur. I think that's the basic learning. That time when you look at absolute degrees and look at, education skills to the highest level, they do come in place. But then I think that individuality works wonders if people are very clear कि यार करना है और करूँगा. Because many people say, no, this is not my kind of job, that way, and you rightly said, start off from the base, learn the hard way. I'll give you a small example. When I started DJing in 1983, there was no high-tech equipment, no one to teach us. I started with 6 audio cassettes, 2 tape decks, and an amplifier. And I really appreciate it. I learned the hard way, because today, if there's chaos with the best of high-tech equipment, I know I can handle it with 7 to 10,000 people on the dance floor.
Not just that. The point is that you imbibe a work ethic that there is no labor that is beneath your dignity.
No, absolutely. I today.
Which basically means that अगर आपको खुद दोबारा करना पड़े ना, you will do it.
Absolutely. And I just like to state one thing. I had a station, but in case I do a show and I walk into the studios, and if I see there's little dirt here or there's something fallen, I don't call the housekeeping. I clean the studio myself, because I'm there at that time, and I shouldn't think it's below my dignity. Hey, क्यों मैं studio साफ करूं? So I think humility, down to earth, is a very, very important point everyone should realize. Very, very important point. Sanjeev, any incident would you like to share which has been a turning point in your career? जैसे होता है ना, कभी-कभी कुछ चलता नहीं है, and suddenly something happens which kind of takes off, and you just jump all the way from one pole to the other pole.
Look, life usually does not have such kind of moments. There may be a eureka moment where you got a realization, but it takes perhaps weeks, months, and years, perhaps, to act on it and actually have an outcome, right? Sometimes a realization, but you don't act on it, right? You forget about it. You don't change. So I think usually in life, there's evolution and not revolution, okay? And 20 years later, you look back and say, hey, there has been a revolution. But the truth is it took 20 years for the revolution to happen. So the evolution. So whether you look at where the idea of Naukri came from, whether you look at when we launched Naukri, so the idea of Naukri, let me tell you the root of Naukri. So in 1989-90, I was working in my last corporate job. Okay, I was working in a company that was then called HMM, now is called GlaxoSmithKline Consumer, and I was in marketing, and I was handling a brand called Horlicks, which is very popular in Calcutta. Every mother gives it to her children.
अगर पीना है नहीं तो बाप रे हालत खराब हो जाता है.
I'm sorry, I was partly responsible. If it was also
but you trust me, you did a very good job, because it's that in thing. Either you do it or God help you, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So now, so it was a Horlicks company, and there were other brands. There was Boost, there was Brylcreem, there was Eno, there is Marmite, and we were the brand management team. There were 7, 8 of us who were in the marketing team. We would sit in an open hall, right? And I could therefore observe my colleagues, right? Because hall was open. And I observed that every time the office copy of Business India would come in, everybody would read it from the back. Because there were 35 to 40 pages of appointment ads in the back of Business India in those days. I used to think this is a weird behavior. I mean, people should be reading magazines for articles. They're passing it on. Okay. And then they start discussing, there's this job going here, job going there. What do you think? And these are people who are working for a multinational, FMCG, MNC. There are not too many options. They will never apply for a job. They're in the best job they can be. But that insight is what gave me the germ of the idea on the basis of which Naukri was launched 7 years later.
Brilliant, Just imagine observing, watching, seeing, and trying to get a pulse feel kind of creates an entire Naukri portal.
तो ये रेवोल्यूशन नहीं था, ये एक इनसाइट था, एक यूरेका मोमेंट था. 7 साल बाद एक्ट किया उसके ऊपर.
Hats off to you. Thank God you did it. Because it's actually, I think it's created such a beautiful platform, for people to have that kind of hope in this current scenario of job scares, jobs not happening. Somewhere or another, you give a direction to a lot of people and make life a bit more meaningful. With that, I would like just to ask you another question. You have studied in premium institutions. Not all students are able to go through premium institutions. Do you think studying from a not so premium institution has an impact on career, of individuals in the long run?
Look, the honest but harsh truth is people respect brands and certain labels will open certain doors. But that does not mean that you cannot be successful if you're not from those places, right? It's just that some doors may not open easily at that time. But you get in some work experience, you get in some achievement, and enough doors can open. So does it? So look, premium institution will give you a start. It does not guarantee success. Okay. Because ultimately you succeed in performance.
If you look at Google and Microsoft, their areas, they take people even without degrees. They keep them working for 3 to 6 months in probation, understand their work culture and how they work. And many people have got jobs in multinational institutes without degrees, just based on how they move forward and how they react and their work. What do you have to say to that?
I think, look, that's absolutely right. However, people will always hire those people who think are right for the job. Right? Absolutely. Now, you've got to have a method and system to assess, will this person be right for this job? Now, why do people go and hire from the best colleges? It's because already there has been some sort of, in their heads, a quality filter.
Absolutely.
This place is hard to get into. So a certain minimum quality is guaranteed. Now, from that set, let me select, right? अब जिस देश में 1.3 billion की आबादी हो, people look at natural ways to have a first shortlist, right?
Absolutely.
So if you go to an IIT to hire, you know that they've cleared the joint entrance exam, and itni rank to आई होगी, तो इतना IQ तो है. Now from this set, let me select 5 people who I think could be appropriate for me.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, if I go to the 3000th ranked engineering college, I can still find 5 people. But I will have a harder time trying to assess which 5.
Selection process will be tough.
And I could make mistakes. Okay, and that becomes a challenge. Then the 5 people in that college have to try harder to somehow get a break and to perform on the job and then make it to them.
So
that is, unfortunately, that is the truth. In a country, in a society where there are more people than their jobs.
Absolutely. It's like a rat race, and wow, it's a charge for it. And in fact, just hope that with the kind of youth and the kind of positivity and the kind of go-getting attitude, and with a lot of people diversifying into entrepreneurship, startups, I think, India is looking at a bright, bright future. But before we get on to a couple of questions asked, I would like you to give a message to everybody watching us, hearing us right now on Zoom, also on the live feed of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. What would you like to tell them? Because, we study, we do so much in life. Why? To build a career, to settle down, to earn well, and to live life the way we would have liked to live it. So what message, Sanjeev, would you like to give to everybody out there?
So I think it's a message that I have said before on this program, on the session. It's basically, look, nothing great is achieved without hard work, without commitment, without giving it enough time.
Patience.
It will take a few years to achieve. Okay, so be prepared for that.
Sanjeev, thank you so much. But there are a couple of questions, just a couple of them. I've been asking. One question was, can you be humble and polite at the same time?
Absolutely. I mean, the two go together. I mean, if you are humble, you will be polite.
Great. One shot, it came across well, and I really appreciate that. Another question, please share some of your failures and strategies used to change risk into opportunity. You can share anything which comes in your mind shortly.
See, I'll tell you. If you are frugal, so we were very frugal. We like to believe we are still frugal, right? If you're frugal, which means आपने खर्चे कम रखे हैं, right? So when we started our business, we were doing very little revenue, but because the costs were so low, they still came in below the revenue, and therefore we were profitable. Now, we were doing 6 lakhs a year revenue, but our cost was 3 lakhs a year. Now, if you're doing 9 lakhs a year, kharcha, 6 lakh revenue, we were failures. At 3 lakhs, we were successes. So the first strategy to reduce risk of failure is to be frugal. Okay? And early on when you're a startup, if you're doing a startup, be frugal. Amazing.
Be frugal, be in control, and Jaysena, profitability also comes through sensible costing.
Absolutely.
And
because you see, you are in control of your costs. You are never in control of revenue. Revenue, so the customer will decide. Dena nahi dena. Cost to aapke haath mein hai.
Sir, आप बोल रहे हैं देना नहीं देना है, फिर देगा नहीं तो हालत खराब हो जाएगा. Okay, another question's come in saying work ethics versus doing the right things. Are they the same or do they clash in concepts? Because sometimes in work ethics, you have to turn and twist, and so doing the right thing versus work ethics.
So listen, there's a difference between work ethics and work ethic. So I was talking about work ethic. Work ethic is the way you work. Okay, I will be really hardworking. I will be honest in my dealings. I will trust people. I'll carry people with me. I will be professional in my approach. Okay. Doing the right thing, I mean, sometimes it's harder, but in the long run, it stands you in good stead.
Absolutely. And they say, the drops coming together can make a large ocean. So
Absolutely.
Doing the right thing with a lot of good people can develop personality, can give a goodwill, can bring up a lovely name. People can believe in you and trust you, because trust is a very, very important factor now these days.
Absolutely.
And another question, how to be innovative and creative? Can it be developed? I'm sure one of the students must be wondering how to train themselves in this particular area of developing oneself and also be creative.
So I'll tell you, everybody is creative or can be creative. Right? Everybody is innovative or can be innovative. Question is, you need the right stimulus. Right? That stimulus usually comes from outside. Now you say Naukri was an innovative concept. Idea kahan se aaya? Idea came from me observing my colleagues.
Absolutely.
So the more you interact with people, the more you observe customers, prospective customers, the more you are in the market, in the field, meeting people, doing stuff, the more ideas you will get by observing people. So creativity doesn't come in a vacuum.
Absolutely.
It comes from real observations.
And just 2 more questions to go. Someone actually put out a question here. In this, today, the world is so full of negativity, whether it be at workplace, whether you go out, sometimes you get kind of pushed down. How to remain positive, when you're feeling low, depressed, and people around you also, many of them, not all of them, exude that, negativity. So how does one be positive in today's world, in these times?
By applying yourself to work, rather than thinking about what others are saying.
Do what you love and love what you do, and you'll always be.
Yeah, so, people sometimes ask me, what is your philosophy in life? And I say philosophy is a very big word. I don't know what it means, but I'll tell you what I think works. Right? You take action, you achieve a positive outcome. Because the positive outcome, it improves your self-esteem. Because it improves self-esteem, you feel a sense of achievement, you do more of it. And it's a cycle. But it starts off by taking action. And hopefully positive action, right? So ultimately, do something, kuch kaam karo.
Keep yourself occupied with what you love to do and you can actually do it. The last question, which is very, very important from the youth of today. These are tough times and these are crucial times. And the youth are always moving fast, go-getting, they're rushing into things. How to keep patience in these crucial times, which very few of us can actually do. It's very, very important that we are in a rush in our careers, in our work, in terms of rising. And
So
these are times.
stop getting distracted by benchmarking yourself with your peers. Say, oh, my classmate in my batch is doing that and I'm doing this and why am I so? Just do what you're doing and do it well. You will make progress.
Do what you're doing and do it well. You'll make progress. Sanjeev, there are lots of questions. We can carry on for the whole day, but I'm going to put a stop to that right now. And thank you so much. Can I tell you one thing? You've been so enlightening that I've learned a lot of things today from you.
It's been a great conversation, Jimmy. Thank you so much for talking to me. And thank you so much to AIMA for inviting me here. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Sanjeev. And thank you so much to AIMA and CMA. Over to AIMA.
Thank you, Mr. Bikhchandani. Thank you, Mr. Tangree, for the very insightful and interesting session. With that, we come to the end of the first session of the Shaping Young Minds program. May I request you all to kindly stay connected as we will start the next session at 12 noon. The session will be with Mr. Deep Kalra, founder and group executive chairman, MakeMyTrip Limited, as the speaker, and Ms. Rekha Sethi, Director General, All India Management Association, as the session chair. Do stay tuned, and we will continue again at 12 with the next session. Thank you again.
AIMA works as an overall India-wide organization for management. It has for long supported, promoted and nurtured the management movement, and it's also reached overseas to try and connect the world with India as well.
So whether you're a young student out there or whether you're a practicing professional, I think being a member of AIMA will give you a huge network, will give you a huge range of new concepts, and it gets you access to events where you really get to meet some of the best and the finest speakers in the country from whom you can learn.
Every manager needs to be updated in terms of the latest techniques, the latest thinking, the latest direction. You update yourself in various aspects of disciplines that one is involved in.
continuous skill development, continuous education is a necessity for everybody.
AIMA has been known for its testing services. For instance, the management aptitude test, which is very popular, of late catering to admissions and also to recruitment services.
Is not just the desire for success, but a fear of failure.
AIMA is an institution that all of us are proud of. We are proud of its legacy, and we are proud of the role that AIMA plays in society.
Hi, Rekha, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Powering on.
Let me try again. Rekha, you can hear me, I know. Can say something? I still can't hear you for some reason. This is odd. Can someone from technology help me? I can't hear Rekha. Rekha's on mute.
Sir, this is Smith Das here from AIMA. We are in touch with Ms. Sethi, who's trying to sort it out.
Okay, I can hear you, so I'm okay then.
That's right, sir.
Okay, thanks.
DG ma'am, I'm requesting Sagar to get in touch with you. Ma'am, we can't hear you. I'll just ask him to call you. Kalra, I think Ms. Sethi is trying to log in again. Hopefully it will resolve the issue.
Okay. Do you want a virtual background or frame is okay?
I think this is fine. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Technology.
Hi, Rekha.
Hi, good to see you, Deep. How are you doing?
Good to see you too. Hanging in there, hanging in there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Okay, it is now 12 with the permission of the speakers. If we may begin the next session.
Sure.
We welcome you all to the second session of the Shaping Young Minds program. This session is with Mr. Deep Kalra, founder and group executive chairman, MakeMyTrip Limited, as the speaker, and Ms. Rekha Sethi, Director General, All India Management Association, as the session chair. Before I hand over the session to Ms. Sethi, a few words about her. A seasoned and accomplished professional, Ms. Sethi has had a distinguished career of over 3 decades and is currently heading the All India Management Association as its Director General. With her stellar leadership, she has transformed AIMA into a new age industry body and heightened the association's reach, portfolio, and presence, not just in India, but overseas as well. A visionary and intuitive leader, she accelerated AIMA's journey of digital transformation during the COVID crisis. She ensured business continuity at AIMA with the early and efficient adoption of digital technology and remote solutions. As a result of this relentless pursuit for excellence over the years, she has built on AIMA's inherent strengths, and today the organization offers contemporary management programs and services, not just to management students and young professionals, but to senior industry experts and leaders as well. A versatile and multifaceted professional, she's on the boards of leading Indian companies, including Sun Pharmaceutical Industries and some of its subsidiaries, CESC, Spencer's Retail Limited, and Hero Steels Limited. She also represents AIMA on the boards and councils of several prominent national bodies and institutes. An alumnus of St. Stephen's College, Delhi, Ms. Sethi has also spent 17 years with the Confederation of Indian Industries, CII, where she led the initiative to create high-profile international events to promote India's economic interests. With these few words, I hand over to Ms. Rekha Sethi with a request to introduce the speaker, Mr. Deep Kalra, and also take the program forward.
Thank you, Smita, and good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Deep. Great to have you with us on AIMA's Shaping Young Minds program, which is one of our flagship brand events. And very well appreciated all over the country. We have done 77 such programs. This is the 77th one. And it's wonderful to have you here with us, talking to this group of young people. We have about 500 who have logged on to Zoom and over 1,000 who have logged on onto the social media. So we have a huge number of minds that you're going to influence today. Just a quick word to all my young friends there. This session is meant for you to ask questions. You have a wonderful opportunity to meet an actual icon from industry. Don't lose it. Ask questions. I will be asking deep questions initially, and then I'm going to open it up to you. You can put your questions in the chat box, but do that. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I would love you to take advantage of that. So with these words, while Deep doesn't really need any introduction, since I've had an embarrassingly long introduction, I'm going to do the same to Deep. So here goes.
Oh.
Well, there are 1,500 young people who have logged on, and I think they deserve to know you better. So let me start off by my interpretation of you, and then I'm going to question you, and you can, actually tell us who you are. The quintessential internet entrepreneur, Deep has seen it all, the dot-com bubble and bust, and the subsequent digital revolution. Typical of startup founders, he's highly educated and has worked for others before throwing away a fat salary for the excitement of changing the world. And he has indeed done his bit to make this world the way we know it now. Towards the end of the last millennium, Deep chucked his cushy job at ABN AMRO to launch an American bowling company in India, a venture that failed to strike. Briefly, he went back to a job in the financial sector, but was charmed back into entrepreneurship by the magic of the internet. This time in the year 2000, he bet his own money along with a few colleagues and friends on solving long-standing travel problems. And MakeMyTrip was born, and the rest, as they say, is history. Today, MakeMyTrip is synonymous with online travel and hospitality management. Moreover, he's mentored some of other successful startups, including 197.com, the parent company of Paytm. Deep has put his fame and money to good use and has co-founded the Ashoka University and an NGO that works on urban issues in Gurgaon. He's also a leader of the Indian tech sector, and he helps the central government with digitization ideas. He was a prime driver of the development and deployment of the Aadhaar Setu app during the COVID pandemic. He's a member of the National Startup Advisory Council of the Government of India and a founding member of indiatech.org, a group that looks after the interests of the Indian internet companies. His success and savvy have been recognized and celebrated widely. EY recognized him as the Entrepreneur of the Year, Business Information in 2011, and KPMG proclaimed him the most powerful digital influencer in India in 2012. Travel organization TTG Asia declared him the best travel entrepreneur of 2012 at the TTG Travel Awards. Importantly, he is a friend of AIMA and absolutely delighted to have him here with us. So Deep, we have over 1,500 students, probably more who have already logged in. Normally we do this program with one local management association, and this time it's the Calcutta Management Association which has taken the lead. And we generally have, it's a live session with over 1,000 students attending it in person. However, since it's the first ever digital format, we have students joining us and young people joining us from 18 cities today, including Coimbatore, Rajkot, Bharuch, Dehradun, Jalandhar, and Asansol, Siliguri, to name just a very few. Just want to give you an idea that, we have a cross section of audience from many different cities, but of course, Calcutta and Bengal make up a majority of them. So as I said, for the Shaping Young Minds program, we invite those we consider icons to talk to young minds about themselves, their lives, what was their journey, what inspired them, what was the successes, and more importantly, what were the failures and the learnings from it. So I'm not going to question you on the Indian economy and how the pandemic has been treating your business, though we can touch on that. But today, our fireside chat is going to be a journey of discovering Deep Kalra and what really makes him tick. So with your permission, Deep, I hope you're ready for it.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I didn't realize you've done more than 70 such sessions. That's amazing. Congratulations, AIMA. Rekha, you've been an old friend and also alumni connection. So it's really lovely and special to be here, and especially talking to young minds, because I think that is, if there is ever a time where you can help give, I wouldn't even say help shape, but if you can help clarify doubts. And I really liked your point about asking everyone to come with their questions. Of course, you will have to do the job of filtering them. We have an hour and we'll do our best. But yeah, this is the time, folks, all of you who are listening, I can hark back to the time when I was, starting out my career. Also, when I was starting out Make My Trip. And I can tell you that I always had tons of questions and doubts. And I found if you don't ask, you won't get an answer. And what's the worst that can happen? When you approach someone, and actually, if that question comes up, I will talk about it, how even to build my board in 2005, there were some pretty big names I wanted to get on the board. And I did have trepidation. I did have fear in asking. And then I realized if I don't ask, what will happen? And actually, most of them accepted. So, you've just got to be, I think, outgoing, but be very crisp and succinct with your question. And that's also a stage setting for today. Be very clear with your question. Most people can take out 5 to 10 minutes of their time, 15 minutes of their time. But if you want an hour for busy people, it becomes hard. So be very to the point, be very specific, and have different questions for different people. So with that, over to you, Rekha, to conduct the proceeding however you think is best for the audience.
Thanks, Deep. So yes, we are old friends, old being the operative word, especially when you're in the midst of, 1,500 young people. But let's go back quite a bit. Everyone is looking forward to hearing your story from the very beginning. In fact, when you were their age. So tell us how it was growing up for you. Life was very different then for young people than it is now. I mean, I know because I'm part of your generation. Growing up was, I was telling telling the audience today that, this is a great time to live in because there's so much more that you can do today than you could do at that time. So let's start at the very beginning. Take us through a journey of your childhood, young life, school, college, MBA. What were your dreams and aspirations? How did you ultimately achieve them?
Yeah, sure. So I might disagree slightly. I actually feel youngsters today have it tougher. And I try to see this generation through the eyes of my kids. So we have a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old. So I have some idea when you're in college, how you're thinking. It's very different. I think it's more difficult now in some aspects because there are just so many choices. Ours was quite unidimensional, if I can say that. There were fewer choices to make. So the most important thing for anyone as you're building your career, as you're going through life, in fact, is the choices that you make. So we will all have different cards dealt to us. We will all have different balls thrown to us. It's how we decide to react and what we decide to pick up and do. So it's the choices which will be your most important decisions you'll make through life. The choices of, in class 10, 11, are you going to take sciences? Are you going to take commerce? What college are you going to get into? Fundamentally, how much importance are you going to accord to studies? It's your choice. We all know that. I mean, you can choose to say, okay, I'm done with 2 hours a day. And some people can say, I'm not done till I get to all the answers and I'm going to be curious and I'm going to go deeper. It's a choice you make. It's a choice you make about, the colleges, like I said, you're going to get into. Of course, sometimes you'd say, I only got these colleges, but actually the choices that presented themselves were a result of many choices that you made many years ago. So that's my biggest learning. I had a very comfortable childhood. I went to a really good school in New Delhi. I grew up here. I was born in Hyderabad, grew up in New Delhi in a private sector background. And I went to St. Columbus School, a school I'm very proud of in New Delhi. It was really a top and leading school then. Now many other schools have come up. Fortunate enough to get the ICSE board and the ISC board. And why I say that is I think these boards really had a very good curriculum. And we were the first batch. I passed out in school in 1987. We were the first batch to have computer science as a board subject. And I have to thank our headmaster, Brother D'Souza, who was, iconic, very well known, and really did a good job. He's quite unwell now, but he actually taught us computers in class 9 and 10, and 11 and 12, and then ensured that it would be a board subject. So it was fantastic. I learned programming way back then. And then I went to the same college that Rekha went to. I went to St. Stephen's College. I did eco, but I have to share with all of you, I don't have too many regrets, but one of my regrets is not doing engineering. So I didn't get into the IITs. I took the JEE, probably didn't study enough, but that's a choice I made. And maybe I didn't, I gave more time to my boards or to sports or to extracurriculars. I just didn't study enough for the JEE. And I realized only when I took the exam how difficult it is. On the back of the board results, I was given admission in two very good engineering colleges, BITS Pilani and Delhi College of Engineering, which became DIT. And I, for whatever reason, at that point of time, I chose economics in St. Stephen's. That was a lot of fun, but I wish I'd actually done my engineering. I think it might have helped me more today. Anyway, I was very focused at that point of time. Yes, I was a good student till school, okay in college, and I was very focused to get into a good MBA. So I took my CAT and I got into the IIMs, and obviously it's hard to say no to IIM Ahmedabad. And I'm glad I went there. For me, that experience of 2 years was transformational. It was transformational for two reasons. One was the quality of peers that you interacted with. We all thought we are cat sisters getting into that college. It was the most humbling experience to get into IIM. And it was the most humbling experience because you had toppers not from all over the country. You had all the IIT toppers. Actually, a lot of our batch was engineers. 70% of our batch was engineers, of which 70% were from IITs. So 50% were from IITs. And IIT I use as a, as a euphemism for really bright guys. They were all types. And it was no surprise that when the honor list of the top 10, we used to be called ISCOLs, industrial scholars, of them 80 or 90% were engineers. So even in courses like accounts and in economics, which they had never studied, they would end up topping because A, they were fundamentally brilliant, and B, they were ready to work very hard. So it was a humbling experience. You realize your place in the world. You also realize a lot of these super brilliant guys, and many of them are very good friends today, are very modest and were not, there was no, sense of pride or swagger because they were so brilliant. They wore it very lightly, and they were involved in many extracurriculars. So that term, of course, there were some geeks and some nerds, but by and large, a lot of people were all-rounders. They were involved in whatever they like, many sports, many quizzes, all kinds of stuff. And today we have a lot of fun thanks to WhatsApp. We have specialist groups in the batch, not just for a general group, but there's a sports group, there's a quizzing group, there's a nature group, there's a health group, all from that batch. And it just shows how multi-talented folks are. So for me, it was an eye-opener. Also, I'd been in Delhi all my life. It was an eye-opener because I met people from all different walks of life and different parts of the country. It was brilliant. And we stayed in a hostel. So really, those were two of my best years of my life. And thirdly was the quality of the education. Incredible profs, very well selected curriculum. So I think it was very transformational for me. I didn't harbor hopes of doing my own thing even then. Even at that point of time, in fact, I didn't take the only entrepreneurship course that was offered. I chose to specialize in marketing and finance. I did my summer training with Citibank. It was quite fashionable to get into a multinational bank or a top marketing company. I joined ABN AMRO. I worked with them for 3 years. It was a Dutch bank, 92 to 95. Enjoyed ABN AMRO, didn't enjoy banking. It was corporate banking. It was a little slow and dull for me those days. By the way, in 92 was just the beginning, folks, of liberalized India. So 91 is when liberalized India. Manmohan Singh as finance minister, Rajiv Gandhi as prime minister, their vision of opening up India. So India was really opening up. So there were a lot of exciting jobs. I think I took a call closer to, in about 2.5 years in ABN AMRO that I want to do something more in the marketing field, more exciting. And that's when what Rekha mentioned, I actually worked for this American company called AIMA Bowling. Again, I had a couple of interesting offers, marketing offers, but I chose something quite different. It was challenging. It was very entrepreneurial. So I worked for this company. I was their first employee in the country. And then I had to set up their operations here. I can tell you 4 years I spent trying very hard to cultivate this market for this family entertainment sport called Temple Bowling, which many of you know now. Set up actually a couple of projects even in Calcutta, but most of them were in and around Delhi, Bombay, and Bangalore. But the cost of real estate in India was just too high to support this. Pool tables, etc. All of that we were doing. It was very interesting. I learned all my street smarts in those 4 years. I tried very hard to make it happen. But then my panic button was not that I wasn't earning as much as my colleagues, honestly, my batchmates. That didn't really bother me ever. Thankfully, what bothered me was the learning had plateaued. The learning had plateaued because my boss sat in Richmond, Virginia in the US. And my colleagues were, really learning, being challenged. Those in consulting were doing exciting stuff. Those in marketing were being posted all over the country, launching new products. Those in advertising were doing exciting stuff. Those in banking also, they were just exploding. This was our late 20s for us. And your learning curve is that steep at that point of time. If you're not learning, then there's a panic. So I thought I should join a company. I was still thinking of a corporate job. I thought I should join a company where I learn a lot. And I got a very interesting proposition to join GE Capital in India as Vice President for Business Development for their retail products, for their consumer products. It was called GE Countrywide then. It's called GE Money now. And it was, again, life-changing for me because in just 18 months, I spent just 18 months there because I was bitten by the internet bug from two sides. This was 98, 99. And in 2000, I quit. So on 1st April 2000, I started MakeMyTrip. So one, I was personally looking at the internet and saying, this is transformational. Many of you youngsters probably maybe were born or very young. You won't understand the internet, but you can hear it from your older siblings or your parents that getting onto the internet in India was a labor of love. You had to be on that dial-up modem. It made those funny electronic sounds. You can go on the internet and see what I'm saying. And then finally you connected, and very often to get disconnected in the next 10, 15 minutes. So all the hard work, especially when you were browsing heavy sites, was done late at night when the bandwidth was better because it wasn't being choked up. So 128 kbps was great, but you effectively got maybe 1/4 of that. So it was interesting because even professionally, I was looking at the internet as opportunities for GE Capital. And that was actually my job, to find different ways to distribute our product, to look at even opportunities where we could partner. And the more I met folks like Sanjeev, who spoke, I think, earlier today, Sanjeev Bikhchandani, Naukri was probably one of the pioneers in 97. Him I knew because we had many common, actually we had all our kind of alum in common. But he was senior, but I had attended some classes that he used to hold to help people get into MBA schools. So I knew him. Ajit Balakrishna of VDF, who was an early mover. I was meeting him for GE. Coincidentally, our Bombay office and VDF's Bombay office were in the same building. So I spent a lot of time understanding what they're working on, his vision, how the internet was opening up. And a couple of transactions. Selling a second-hand car online was transformational. Booking a holiday online was transformational. And I said, enough is enough. So I took the plunge in 2000 to go ahead and set up my own online travel company. I did look at other business plans, including online stockbroking, but online travel seemed to be the place, which was a good mix of, I think, heart, because I was very excited about it, but also head. And I would share that with a lot of you, that whatever you do, you've got to be really, really, really excited about. You've got to love what you do. Automatically, you will give it your best. And if you don't, and I learned that in banking, it's very hard to sustain your best. Even if you're the most earnest, hardworking person, that extra 10 or 20%, which makes all the difference, will be hard to come. So once you find your calling, and clearly, I mean, it's been a hell of a ride. It's 20 years, going on 21 now, end of this month. But, I couldn't have asked for more from the career, but I can tell you there were some very, very difficult times, which I'm sure Rekha or some of you will want to ask about. And those are the defining moments. Where do you call it quits? You say we are done, or do you want to keep going on? So I think one has gone through a lot of that too. So I'll stop here, Rekha, and then you can ask me whatever you like.
So I didn't know that you wanted to do engineering, but probably if you had been to IIM Ahmedabad and there were so many people from the engineering background, this is precisely where you might have ended up in any case.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But you were, as you said, one of those pioneering entrepreneurs. Those were the days when failure was a dirty word. Not many people went in for entrepreneurship. A safe job was the order of the day, and you had one. Uh, Tell us what made you chuck it up completely for unknown territories at a time when failure was still not considered all right as it is now. I know you wanted to bring in bowling into India, bowling alleys, as you said, which did not quite take off as expected. So you had earlier tasted failure fairly early in your career, so to say. Did that help? Was it something which shaped you as a person? You obviously didn't let it get you down, because you went on to build a super successful enterprise with MakeMyTrip. So tell our young audience here as to what made you move on and touch your dreams and the importance of failure in your life.
Yeah, it's a great question, Rekha, and I'm glad you touched upon that point. And I think the youngsters should all think about this and be very comfortable with it. So, firstly, I think it's very easy to say that failure does not impact you. Failure does. It impacts everybody, but it impacts people in different ways. So yes, AIMA bowling was, from a business point of view, a financial point of view, a failure. However, for me, it was maybe my awakening. Maybe, like I said, the place where I learned my street smarts. Some sort of way, it also meant deep down inside, when MakeMyTrip was going through its challenges in the first, I would say, year 0 to 1 was dream year. Year 1 to 5 was trial by fire. It was trial by fire, and very quickly I can tell you what we went through. So dot-com bust happened. Our early stage investors, e-ventures, they wanted to pull out the money they had invested. We had to return the money. I had to buy back the company. So I had to literally beg, borrow, but not steal. I had to find angels who could help me. And we still went through 18 months without a single rupee of salary. And one could do that simply because, there was, I think there was some savings. Definitely my wife had savings. And I was just so fixated that we were going to make this happen. But more importantly, there seemed to be something we were onto. So I think it was a mix of head, where I was looking at the numbers, the data. We were getting better and better on the crucial metrics. The crucial metrics being conversion. Are we improving on conversion month on month, if not week on week? Are we actually reducing our burn month on month? Are we increasing revenues? Are we getting higher repeat? I think repeat rate is one of the most important metrics for any business. Do people come back after trying your service once, or do you have to keep on inducing them with discounts, etc.? Those become very important metrics. So we were getting better. So the head could clearly see, if we got fuel for another couple of years, the revenue line would intersect with the expense line and we would have break even. The other side was the gut, which I think all entrepreneurs need to have, the gut instinct that, listen, we are onto something. And the third one is the point that you touched upon, Rekha, which is, if one failed again, 2 dots make a line, right? 2 dots make a trend. So I think that subliminally, I can't say I thought of it with the clarity I can today, because hindsight is 2020. That fact that if one were to fail again, it would mean that it would be almost impossible to try a third time. So you want to something, so you give it a bit more and you give it a bit more. And therefore I want all the young folks out here to be very clear. If you start something and you feel you're onto something, don't quit too early. So my most important advice to any of the youngsters I know, or many of my colleagues, by the way, who leave to start their own thing, which is hard to let them go because normally they're among the brightest guys. And if they ask me, give us some advice, which is typically the question, I always tell them, don't go in with a 2-year time horizon or a 3-year time horizon. Go in saying, I'm going to do this for 4 to 5 years. In India, businesses take time to take shape. It's not snap and you're done. This is not Silicon Valley. This is not China. It takes time. Yes, things are getting better. But have the mindset of a long distance runner, of a marathon runner. This would say, I'm not going to quit till 4 to 5 years, which means do you have resources to last 4 to 5 years? Do you have that kind of stamina? If you expect something to happen in 2 years, the chances of it happening are small. If it happens, great. But give it a little extra. I'm a firm believer that many great businesses have not seen the light of day because someone gave up too early. Someone just gave up too early. They just said, it's not happening. Let me go back to a corporate job. So that's one thing. The other part is, yes, it really helps when you have a good education degree in your back pocket. And I tell all the youngsters who are from top colleges, and it doesn't only have to be an IIM or an IIT. There are excellent colleges beyond that. I mentioned BITS and DIT. Many of the RECs are top colleges. Many of the non-IIM MBAs, like I believe places like SPJN and all, are just phenomenal, and we hire from there and they're as good. So I would say today a top 30, 40 MBA school in the country is good. If you're in the top 30, 40, you're a good school for sure. And again, that doesn't mean you can't do very well if you're not. And in terms of engineering, maybe the top 40, 50 colleges are very good. So, but fundamentally, if you have a degree in your back pocket, this is by the way, only a degree when I'm talking about engineering. What about liberal arts? You mentioned Ashoka in the introduction. That's today considered a great degree because very young, very good, but a top place. Or a CA or other professional degrees like that. If you have that, please use that degree as an insurance policy when you're staking out and doing your own thing. Don't use that degree as a noose. And that's a big difference. People, if they're from a very good college, sometimes feel, oh, because I'm from this college, I better go down the trodden path. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, it is not the trodden path. It is the tougher path for sure. It will have great returns if you do well. But don't always be afraid and conform. You don't have to always conform. Entrepreneurs never conform. If you conformed as an entrepreneur, then you're never going to do well. Because by definition, you are doing something which is non-conformist. By definition, you're doing something, you're taking the road less traveled, as simple as that. So I would say, please use this degree as your insurance policy. And when you're young, India is still booming. COVID will be done. Hopefully in the next quarter or two, we'll see the worst of it behind us. Things will start opening up. In fact, the economy has come back. We almost had a flat quarter in terms of growth. This year, we could grow even 8%. So things in India, there are no dearth of opportunities. If you're bright and hardworking, eventually you'll do well. So have that confidence. So I think that failure at the back of the mind, Rekha played a very big role, could not afford to fail again. And that gave the fuel or the stamina and the resolve to keep persevering through those very tough 4 years where we were bootstrapped, we had no money, we were living hand to mouth, month to month. And I'm glad one did, because that also gave you the resolve and the conviction that you can make it happen. And I have to call out the value of the team. So that's really important for all of you who are thinking of doing your own thing. I say it often, and it's really true. I was foolish enough to start alone. I was naive and foolish. I said, I can build this alone. I never even thought of a partner. I was just so convinced that maybe I had the confidence. Then I was lucky enough to have three great individuals who joined me. And during the downturn, who wanted to support me, both financially and with cuts in their own salary. And they said, we don't want to quit. We want to be together. And if I can say I was smart enough to hold on to these guys, to make them co-founders in the right spirit. So I actually made 3 co-founders in the journey. 2 have retired, but they're still, hold on to stock. They're still friends of the firm. And one of them is actually the group CEO, Rajesh, who Rekha is one of those guys who had the conviction at that point to support the company. And the other 2, Keyur and Sachin, have been great supporters. So if I was to do it all over again, I think I would take 2 as the magic number for me. Not 1, not 3, not 4 for sure. I think 2 is the right number, where you go with someone with complementary skills. Yes, some people say you should not have equal partnerships. It should be very clear who's the senior partner, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe it could be equal partnerships. I have no problem with that. And you have complementary skills. So 1 is alone, 1 is lonely. 2 is a great sounding board. And choose your partner not only for complementary skills, but please make sure that you have common values. That's really important, a common set of values, because you will come on many decision points where your values will get tested. And at that point of time, you'll get to know. And this is values about fundamentally what does success mean to you? If one person says success means to be becoming a unicorn, and the other person says no, success means to be building a wonderful service where people love it, or building a great product where there's a lot of brand love, then your value system is slightly different. So money should mean the same thing. Success should mean broadly the same thing. And that, I think, can help create a really good company. Rekha, you're on mute.
So some very key points you've made, and I think the young people who have joined us today should take those away with them. One is, don't give up too early. The only question is, what is too early or what is too late for some people? But then I guess everyone needs to figure that out. And don't discount the value of education. A lot of people these days feel, or young people feel, that they really don't need the education, because entrepreneurship is perhaps the flavor of the day, so to say. So it's good to hear from you that there is still a lot of value for good education, and that's actually your backstop, and one shouldn't give that away. Not confirm, do your own thing, absolutely. Very interesting when you say that have another co-founder, have someone join you on your journey, because there are lots of times that you feel that it's better to do it alone, because you're not sure whether you're going to, your values will match, as you said, or whether whether success means the same thing to both of you. So how do you ensure that? I mean, you don't really know a person before you so-called, tie up with them.
Yeah, no, you do. And by the way, Rekha, you're absolutely right. People feel that the education, I'm not saying it's a must. Some of the brightest and top entrepreneurs in the world were college dropouts. But let's not forget, those guys really, really did something very special in life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were unique individuals. It's very easy to look at Steve Jobs and to look at, Mark wasn't a dropout. I think he had a top education, but it's easy to look at a few names and say, oh, they were this, but they were very, very different stuff, right? So let's be very clear. Let's not be delusional. That degree can only help you. The other place that degree really helps, by the way, the education really helps, is when you build up the company, when you scale up. When you scale up, it's very important that you actually get when you're attracting people and high quality people to come in, it helps. Also, when you scale up, then you fall back on two kinds of education. And I want to point that out, and that's the value of work experience. So you fall back on some things that you've learned, even if later in life, if not in college. The other thing that you fall back on is what you learned by osmosis. So I'm a big believer that your maximum learning is by osmosis. And those of you who studied your bio or remember it, osmosis, you'll understand, is again used as a metaphor when you're in the same room. So I learned a lot in these jobs by the seniors and the bosses and the brilliant people you were interacting with. And then willy-nilly, you fall back thinking, how would so-and-so have reacted to this challenge? What would so-and-so have done? So I think that's very interesting too. So keep that definitely in mind. You also mentioned how long is long enough. That's why I said 4 to 5 years. When something's not working, be steadfast enough on your goal of building a special company, but be flexible enough to try a different way to do it. So if you've got a pivot, it's okay. Don't be so stubborn that the world is changing, but I'm not going to change it. But be ready that if you need to, your goal is still the same. You want to build a great company, a special company, but be flexible enough that you can do different things. So different approaches. So I think that's really important. And while I was reacting on that, what was your specific question to this one, Rekha? I lost track of that.
It was more of a comment.
Rekha? We probably have. Okay. Maybe what? Yeah, Rekha, I lost your specific question. I was reacting to your comments.
Yeah. No, it's. I wanted to actually come to your to make my trip.
Yeah.
And the specific, how it led to your chucking up your job. It couldn't have been a one-day decision. It would have needed a lot of thinking. It would have needed a lot of strength of mind to say, okay, I'm going to chuck it up. What was that turning point which led you to say, okay, enough of GE, now I want to start my own venture? How did your family did they have a role to play?
Yeah.
Tell us your story.
Yeah, that and the other thing, what you said, how do you choose your co-founder? So I'll talk about both. So this is, I think, really important. I think for me, like I said, at GE and during that time, the internet was truly beginning to happen in India. It was difficult to go online. There was definitely no mobile internet, guys. It was all desktop, laptops, whatever, and very slow. But what I did find, like I said, was when I met some of these internet entrepreneurs, it was pretty eye-opening for me. Also, when I was doing personal stuff, like I mentioned fleetingly, selling a second-hand car for my wife. Now, I went through the approach, what I knew way back then, which is I spoke to, one of my kind of friends who was in the auto finance line. I requested him, just help me find, a good buyer. And he said, sure. He put me on to some agent and they were quoting me something. And then I was tempted to go ahead and put the car on Automart India. I think that was Automart India from Mahindra's way back, 99. And lo and behold, I got a couple of people interested, and two of them were ready to come on that weekend, on Saturday, to our house and to check out the car. Both of them came. One of them was a corporate type and offered without negotiation 20,000 more than the best offer I was getting through the offline system. And I said, wow, something's going on here. Sure enough, he brought his checkbook. The deal was done. I'm still in touch with that guy. I said, something's going on. What is happening? And fundamentally, what was happening was the internet was disintermediating. The internet was disintermediating, and therefore everyone in that supply chain, in that value chain, who wanted to make 5,000, 10,000 sub-brokers, that's how the second-hand car market works, because someone picks it up here, checks out the car, then sells it to the big dealer. The big dealer then gets approached by smaller dealers from other cities, they take it there. So this was all disintermediating. We were going direct customer to customer, peer to peer. So that was the game changer. The other very interesting incident was actually a holiday booking. So I remember we were traveling to Phuket in July 99, me and my wife, and we spoke to our offline travel agent, as we always did, called him. The air tickets got done very quickly because there were very few flights that time. We were booked on Thai. We knew what we wanted to do, and that was it. There weren't too many choices. We booked. But the hotel kept going back and forth. And he would show options which we didn't like or which were too expensive. He even said, come to my office, sit with me, etc. I think we even did that. I was a pretty complex kind of smooth thing. There was a lot of friction. So I went online because I was already quite online for many things. And with some trepidation, I must say, I dropped my credit card finally on a site called asiarooms.com, Asia Hotel Rooms or asiarooms.com. I don't think they exist now. And the same hotel that he quoted was $15 a night cheaper. Over 6 nights, that was $90. It was a lot of money back then. We were on a very modest kind of budget. And we went, and I was scared that will the hotel live up to the pictures, the images, etc., or have they fooled us? Thankfully, it was more or less the same. There were no rude surprises, and it all worked out well, and we saved money. I think all of this pretty much just convinced me that, listen, the internet is not only here to stay, it's a game changer. Also, the time is now to build something on it. I could have waited. By the way, GE job was great. Like Rekha said, it's an excellent place to work, brilliant minds all around you. Pay was very good. And I'd also convinced that time the boss, who's become a friend now over time, Pramod Bhasin, that we should build a GE India online business. And he even sanctioned $1 million to build geindia.com. But after a few months of seeing that, I was convinced that if you want to build a new business, particularly on the internet, it's got to be the only thing you do. It's got to be your raison d'etre. That's a French word, French phrase, which means your reason for living. It cannot be your Friday project or your Saturday project. It's got to be the main thing. And I think I basically was excited enough to take this plunge. Yes, I got a lot of support. I must say the family, wife, parents, they said, listen, if you're convinced, we will back you. They believed in my kind of judgment. And I went ahead and took that plunge. It was not that crazy then because, again, don't forget, so I was 30. I was definitely in my back pocket, had some nice degrees. And more than that, I had really spent a lot of time developing a business plan about this. So I firstly attacked businesses which were done on the phone, therefore online travel and online stockbroking. You never saw your broker, you never saw your travel agent. That was the reality. You probably met them once a year or twice a year on Diwali or something like that. Most of the time, what were you doing? Most of the time, you were basically talking to them on the phone, placing your orders when it was the, let's say, the stock market, maybe spoke every day. And to your travel agent, you spoke when you needed. I felt these businesses would move online first. Yes, India was very new to the internet. In the first 5 years, we really struggled with the Indian market, but the non-resident Indian market in the US kept us going. And like I said, went through many challenges, but I think taking the plunge was a mix of detailed work, definitely, but also conviction and self-confidence. So I'm yet to meet an entrepreneur who doesn't have self-confidence. In fact, the warning I give is don't have too much of it.
Don't be overconfident, yeah.
Be overconfident. People tend to get delusional. No, be realistic. Confidence is important. Overconfidence is no longer a virtue. So, and your other point that you made about selection of partners when you don't know them, no, Rekha, I would say get to know them. It's like dating. You're going to be married to this person. You're going to probably spend 10 years, 20 years together. You're going to be really close. You should get to know them. You should not join hands with someone to launch a company at a lark. No, you should spend a lot of time getting to know them. Just like I would say, it's the same advice for getting married. Spend a lot of time, date a lot, get to know each other, well before you take that plunge. So then only will you get some feel. There's no guarantee. But it's definitely better than the interviews we do at work. And some of the best companies, they do, people say 10 interviews, 7 interviews. Why? They're just trying to get to know you better. And they've done it very well. They have a very good structure, whether it's a McKinsey or a Levers or many firms, they really go through the grind. We try to get, for any senior hire, about 5-6 people meet them. And anyone has the power of veto, but that's still one interview. I think here you have to go beyond. It's not like 1 hour. You should be spending tons of time on your business idea and you'll get to know if you're on the same page or not. It may not be identical, so it may not be like 100% match, but at least the overlap is pretty good.
So Aviraj Basu has a question for you, which, it's a little more of what we have been talking about. So I've decided to take it now. He's saying, what conditions must be considered to choose a perfect business partner besides having the same values? So when you're saying get to know a person, I mean, what would you look for? What are those, values, and what would be those, what would you really look for in a person?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Aviraj. And like I said before, but I'll just kind of reiterate it here. So what values is one? We've spoken enough about that. Complementary skills. So your complementary skill set is very important. Let's say you want to build a business on the internet, technology or internet broadly. You definitely need one person who is very strong on the tech side. It could be you or it could be the other person. It's hard when you have neither. In our case, we didn't have a technologist, and therefore I say I regret not being a computer engineer. So we went through many CTOs, and knock on wood, now we have been very stable for a while. So, but it's much better if one of you has that skill. You look at some of the best startups around, I think one of them will be a technologist. So everything technology will end with you, your final decision. So that means pure programming, before that product, before that maybe even design. On the other side, the complementary skills, you need someone who's strong in business, right? So you need someone who's strong on finance, someone who has a head for marketing, someone who can overall approach the investors, the market. So that's a very nice complementarity. It's never always so perfect. So you'll always have some overlap. Like in many companies, you'll hear of one founder, but the other co-founder, you'll know there are 2 co-founders, but you'll only see one. The other one is very busy running the company. And that's they are both comfortable with it. Some people are not extroverts, so they don't want to go in front of investors or media or whatever. Smart investors will say, we want to meet the whole team. They will meet them. But otherwise, from day-to-day basis, you'll have one person who's typically market-facing, as we call it, and you'll have the other person who's inward-facing. That's very important too. So, and then what about people? The most important thing that you manage internally is your people. There, you probably both have to manage people in your department. teams. So one person will manage everyone technology, and you will hire someone who tomorrow will be a head of technology, day after will be a CTO. That's important, and they will then take care of their cadres. And similarly, you will hire at some point of time a head of marketing, a head of finance, and then they'll grow as the organization grows. But initially, I would look at complementary skills and similar value system.
So success came in plenty. I have two questions here. How did you cope with this success? And what does it actually mean to you?
Okay. So success didn't come that easily. I think we probably could count ourselves properly successful only in 2010 when we IPO'd. So August 2010, we IPO'd on NASDAQ. I think that was definitely fair to call that successful. It was a very successful IPO, did very well. First 5 years, yeah, small successes. Site launched quite fast, team built, did well, getting traction. But like I said, 2001, 2005, no success, just survival. 2005, we managed to get our first proper round of institutional finance, $9 million from safe partners. You can count that as limited success. From 2005 to 2010, we grew dramatically. We grew 25x in that period. We were profitable. We managed to IPO. So that was really a very good time. I think that's where the value systems with which you're brought up and you grow matter. I can't say one wears success as lightly as one should, because actually what happens is all your learnings happen during failure, not during success. So when you're succeeding, you typically have your head up in the clouds and you're like saying, whatever, everything's great. You're just taking in the moment. I think the trick is to recover from that quickly, to come down to Mother Earth quickly, and to hit the ground, because there's the next challenge. So I'll give you a great example. An IPO is a great financial milestone, but it is an end game for the founders. It's great for investors. They get a chance to exit and they can, do very well through that. But for the founders, it is base camp. So let's build a metaphor of mountaineering and mountain climbing. It's just base camp. Yes, you hit a certain base camp and then you're going ahead. It gives you access to public money. It puts your currency, your stock suddenly is liquid currency. You can use that. You can raise more money easily. You can attract a lot more talent. But it's just a stage. So I think you have to see it in context of where do you want to go. So what success means to me is, I think we're still on the journey. I'd love for the company and the brand to stand for something where every customer is a brand ambassador. Everyone who deals with the brand is at the minimum satisfied, but hopefully very happy and delighted, and therefore is happy to recommend the brand to others. And I think there are certain brands who enjoy that today. So if you think of a brand like Apple, I think that's the kind of brand love it enjoys today. Or you think of a brand like Nike, or you think of some of these brands, they enjoy that brand love. That's where we have to go. And that for me would be true success. But yeah, it's very important to get stepping stones on the way to that success.
So Deep, you faced an unprecedented situation when the COVID pandemic hit us all. I think it hurt the travel and tourism industry the most. I remember watching one of your interviews where you had half jokingly said that it wasn't an earnings call for MMT, but that it was a no earnings call for that quarter. I mean, that really stuck with me. So how did you and your staff face this challenge? Because there must have been times where when you saw profits, your revenue coming down to what, 90 something percent, by 90 something percent. How did you manage to keep up the morale of your people in those very difficult times? And did you need to lay off staff? Because that's probably the most challenging thing an entrepreneur can ever face.
Absolutely, Rekha. So you are right. COVID was unprecedented, but maybe the crisis of the dot-com bust and maybe the crisis of being bootstrapped with no money somewhere prepared us and also kind of hardened you. Like, I still feel the tougher crisis was way back then, because then it was existentialism crisis. Will we survive?
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't have that fear now because we had a solid balance sheet. We had $150 million in our balance sheet. We had to cut our costs. We had to come down. But I knew we will survive, even if this goes on 2 years. And that's why we took very harsh measures. We said, who knows how long it'll go on. And even now, it's not over, right? And someone just posted on the chat, travel and tourism has truly been completely devastated, because the very nature of travel and tourism is to move around and get people, which is not allowed. To give you an example, April, May, and June, the quarter that we reported, the first financial quarter, 2 months were in full lockdown, April and May, and June was just limping out. That's when I commented, this is a lack of earnings call, not an earnings call. We were down 95.5%. Our revenues were wiped, obliterated is the word, completely. There was no revenue left. But we managed. What we had said was, we will manage what we can manage, which is costs. So we came down drastically. We cut all our variable costs, particularly marketing, because we said if people aren't traveling, why should we market? Semi-fixed costs. We looked at our outsourcing costs, cut that. We looked at our hosting cost of our sites and servers, we cut that. And finally, we went into fixed costs. We actually asked all senior management to take cuts. Rajesh and myself took a 100% cut again, which was now much easier than it was way back then. For almost 6 months, our leadership team took a 50% cut, down to manager level where they took a 10% cut. And I owe you to my people who took those cuts. The idea was we don't have to lay off. Sadly, 2 months into the crisis, we realized two things. One is it's going on and on and on. It's not getting over. Remember, we all hoped it'll get over quickly, but it wasn't. Secondly, a lot of our very smart guys, particularly tech and product guys, are industry agnostic. They were being lured away by competition. So they were being lured away by non-travel online sectors who were booming. Whether it was Google or Amazon or food delivery or whatever, they were booming. They were luring away these people. And while no one will admit they left because their salaries been cut, but that hurts. So I wanted to restore their salaries. I figured we are being unfair to them. Also, at the same time, we realized some parts of the business will take very long to come back. The international travel. Just see, even today, it's virtually non-existent. MICE travel, which is meeting incentive conferences. So we did have to fine tune. We did actually have to let go of 10% of our people only once and not again. And I can tell you, hand on heart, it is the worst and the toughest decision to make. It's horrible for the person who receives it.
Yeah.
But it's also horrible for someone meeting it out. And only when you've asked one person to go, you can imagine how tough it is to ask almost 300 people to go.
It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
Sleepless nights. We tried to do it in the nicest possible way. We gave them the full year for them and their family to get medical coverage from us. We gave the laptops and the mobiles. For anyone who had worked longer than a few years, we gave more ex gratia. And so much so, both Rajesh and I actually helped a lot of these long-serving folks personally too, because it's hard. And only if we, could get them back, could we have actually redeemed ourselves. And hopefully we will when things get back. Those lines of business get back, but it's been very hard. So I hope no one has to do it. The lesson there, think twice, think thrice before hiring more people during good times, because you never know when tough times will come. So other expenses are easy to cut because they're not linked to people directly. But when it's linked to people, think very hard. It's very easy to ramp up, but very painful to ramp down. So lots of learnings for me through this. Yes, the fact that we've lived through tougher times, I think got us ready. But yeah, it's been challenging to say the least. I just want to complete the story. October, November, December, revenues came back about 38 to 40%, which is good. But we had controlled costs so much that we showed a profit during COVID, probably the only OTA in the world who did that, a cash profit of $9 million through COVID. And at the back of that, we managed to do another fundraise. So stocks at an all-time high. People are very hopeful. Travel will come back with a bang. Domestic travel, people are traveling, notwithstanding the few new hotspots emerging in Maharashtra. But fair to say about 50% of domestic travel is back. And I think if vaccination drives doesn't slow down or rather picks up speed, I think another quarter, a lot of things will be behind us. We'll still have to travel with caution, which we should in crowded places. But I think people will be bolstered and emboldened with the vaccine and say, listen, now we can keep going forward. So.
But do you think the pandemic also taught you new ways of working, apart from, of course, cutting costs? I was talking to Ritesh Agarwal of OYO, and he was mentioning how the tourist traffic has shifted from international travel to domestic travel, and how, cities and hotels which were hardly visited at times they're going chock-a-block. And I have a question here also from Dr. Shubroto Chattopadhyay, who's asking something similar. Has this pandemic been a way of changing how you've been working and bringing in new ways for people to travel? So he's saying, will virtual simulation tours be a substitute? Is that a new way of traveling for people?
Yeah, no, great point. So firstly, absolutely, it's been game changing. The fact that we are working remotely and so efficiently itself, and just look at what you said. Normally you do this in person, you have so many people, suddenly you can open this out. So conferences, on the other hand, have changed the game. And, I know a bit about your organization. I know CII quite well. I know TIE very well. All organizations have adapted to this, and actually all of them have had bumper years, and because there's very little cost to this, but that's great. Similarly, we learned how to work remotely, which was great. We learned how to service our customers remotely. So a lot of work had to be done. A lot of our tech projects, which didn't get done with the day-to-day pressures, actually got done. The big, massive projects got attacked. So a lot of silver linings to this COVID cloud. I think it's also taught us that you can forever work in a hybrid way. Yeah. Many people now will be able to choose that, listen, maybe I'll come to work physically 3 days a week, but I'll work 2 days, and maybe there'll be adjustments, maybe there'll be comp adjustments, but there's savings to both. There's savings to the company on space. Space is very expensive. We gave up space, by the way. We've given up almost 1/3 of our space overall, and we think that's the right thing to do, and we'll figure when we need everyone to come back and how we will do it. The other COVID, silver lining is the advent and the mainstreaming, rather, of villas and apartments. This was something which wasn't mainstream. People still looked at hotels. They looked at some of them stuff like this. Now it's become mainstream. And we've got now 25,000 properties like this where you can choose a villa or an apartment over a hotel. People want spread out. The other thing for us is the premium business. The premium hotels have opened up in a massive way, given great deals because people want to be spread out like in a resort. Driving holidays is big, so therefore domestic has become huge. People are willing to drive out 10 hours to get to a remote place and be there. Workations. So many of my friends have gone up to the hills, have been in Goa for months, and are working up in a small cottage in the hills. And they're saying at least it's open air and fresh air for long. So we all know people who can do that, have done that, who didn't have maybe any need. So I think it's been eye-opening for sure. And that's, I think, going to be the norm going forward. I think there's always going to be changes and we need to be fleet-footed and adapt. So adaptability has become an even more important skill set than it ever was. And people who have adapted to this are the ones you see positive even today, even if they're working from home. And people who haven't are the ones who are grumbling and mumbling. So the reality is, our fundraise. So we raised $230 million sitting at home, literally, as they say, with, a shirt and a jacket on top and track pants below, and working on the clock. And look at the money we raised. Look at the money we saved. We didn't travel to 5 different cities. The first call was with Hong Kong. Then we moved westwards till the last call, middle of the night, was with SFO. So in 16 hours, we had met all our investors. And so there's a lot of lessons learned. And I think the goodness of this should be retained.
Deep, we have completely run out of time, but I will ask this one last question, which all of us really would like an answer to. How do you achieve the very elusive work-life balance, and how do you manage the stress which comes from running a large business? And then my last question, what next for Deep Kalra, the person, and Deep Kalra, the entrepreneur?
Okay. So the first one is, let me tell you, anyone who's starting up a business, there is no work-life balance for the first many years. So be very clear about it. For first 5 years, like I said, there's no work-life balance. If you want to build something special, please be ready for a slog. I kid you not that for the first 4 years, when I say there was never a Saturday and most people took half Sunday off. So 6.5 days was the norm. People worked really hard. Almost my entire team had a toothbrush in office because they never knew when they'll be staying back in office. sleeping on the desk, under the desk, on the chair, whatever. So that was the norm. If you want to build something special, be ready for very, very, very long and hard days. It should be a labor of love, so it'll come automatically. If you think you can do it without that, no. Don't have the glamour picture when you get into entrepreneurship. Have the real deal. It is tough. Work life comes later, balance comes later, which is okay. I think I definitely learned that, and we put that into play as you grow up, as you mature, also as the company becomes more secure. You hire people, you can now delegate more, etc. So definitely one can do that. But I think as an entrepreneur, you should always be ready at any point of time to drop anything for work. There are no sacrosanct hours, and in many jobs too. I mean, in your job, Rekha, I know you're working around the clock at times. There are no sacrosanct hours. Maybe there's even more ownership. So let me put it very bluntly: the buck stops at you, right?
True.
So buck will stop at you as the founder when things are falling apart, etc. They will stop at you. Build a great team to whom you can give the credit when things are going down, and that can help in work-life balance. Be ready to genuinely delegate. Don't get people just for the title and then don't give them enough to do. So if you hire very good people and then second guess them, watch over their shoulders, micromanage them, they will leave. So if you hire very good people, hire them as mini entrepreneurs and give them the latitude to spread their wings and grow.
Toughest thing to do.
Yeah.
Let go.
To some, it comes naturally. And
Yeah.
I again thank my, background, training, as well as work experience for that. Many people, it doesn't come naturally because they believe they're the best to do everything. That's a challenge. If you want to do that, then you'll never have work-life balance and be
Absolutely.
ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so be ready with that. Right now, I think there's a task still unfinished here, Rekha. Like I said, my definition of success for the company, we are still on the journey. So I'm still having fun, enjoying it. So I'm not really looking beyond, but yes, on the not-for-profit side, a lot of passion projects. So getting involved with whether there's an Ashoka, there's I Am Good Now. We have recently launched endowment fund for Amitabha, my alma mater. So there's lots of interesting things going on, and that definitely helps. So I think if you can split up your time, maybe take out 5-10% time for your passion projects, that helps you.
Because you have suggestions in the chat that you need to do much more. And Shushmita had asked you if you had any plans to invest into e-commerce in the future to provide a one-stop shop for travel needs of your customers. But
No, I think there's a lot of angel investing also going on. I find it hard to look at companies one-on-one. So I go typically through funds, but I've found some very good startups where I have invested, and I do try to help them from time to time. So that's part of it. But I think if you're still full-time with a job, it's very hard to balance that with investment.
True. Well, I've actually broken my own rule of staying completely on time by being almost 5 minutes over time. But Deep, that was a fascinating journey through many years. As you said, I've known you for a long time. I still have at least half my questions which are unanswered. So we'll have to have you back again. But I think the young people have probably, got a lot from your journey, which will help them going forward. And it is chance encounters like the one with you today, which many of them are having, which has the potential of actually changing a lot of young lives and channeling them in the right direction. So thanks so much for being with us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Rekha. I really enjoyed it. And my very best to everyone who logged in. Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Over to you. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to the end of the program today. On behalf of everybody, we thank our eminent speakers of both sessions. Special thanks once again to our sponsors for today's event: CESC Limited as principal sponsor, Tanishq as co-sponsor, The Telegraph as associate sponsor, EIILM as academic partner, 91.9 Friends FM as radio partner. We also thank all of you for giving us your time today. A certificate of participation can be downloaded by the participants from the link being displayed right now in the chat box. Thank you all, and we look forward to having you once again. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Datta. So you're on mute. Mr. Datta, you're on mute.
I said, yes, thank you, Rekha. Thank you very much for everything. And you and your great team. I'm sure we can do a lot more programs together in this part of the world.
Yes, absolutely. We'd be happy to, and hopefully in the physical format next time.
Yeah, we will do. Don't worry. And there are certain things that we have in mind, so we'll have a chat with you separately. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.